Steve,
Eric,
we're back.
we're back. Part two.
Part two. You know, when we recorded the last time, and I was watching the clock, and I think I even alluded to the fact like we're running out of time here. But I immediately after we recorded, I said, "Hey, can you get back on? Let's finish this out because there's another topic I wanted to cover with you. We just didn't have time the last time. So I truly appreciate you carving out the time to do this."
Oh, I'm happy to do it. I would rather spend time with one of my favorite people than do most anything else. So
Wow.
happy to do it.
This is being recorded. This will be a nice little vignette for me to use in my family.
That's exactly right. You are
Ammunition.
an insightful and wise individual. So, I
Thank you
want to
very
soak
much.
up as much of that as I can.
All right. Thank you very much. So, Steve, I know, last time we talked about primarily it was sales mindset inside of the sales realm, emotional intelligence and things like that. It was very, very thoughtful, very informative. And we got some really great feedback on one of the shorts that we created from that episode. So, and I believe that one was on the hot cognition flow that you
Yes.
described. Really
Yes.
resonated. But today, I want to talk about something that you're also very knee deep in, if I can say it that way, and that's on the spiritual side of things.
Mhm.
And for our audience, as they have heard me millions of times to say, when we talk about spiritual, at least in the confines of what we're talking about, we're not talking about a specific religion or ritual and
Right.
those kind of things. And Steve, as I'm about ready to ask this question, you should know our audience is very diverse. We have atheists, we have agnostics, we have born again Christians, we have Hindus. It is very diverse, which I love. So I want you to be able to, whatever it is that is included in your spiritual journey, whether that's Buddha or Jesus or whatever, but can you talk about how you approach your spiritual journey and maybe even think of it in terms of not maybe when you first, sort of awaken to what that is, but how are you doing that today? What's the importance of your spiritual journey today?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I look like Buddha, but I believe in Jesus. I just wanted to say that right up front. So, um, no, I think that our spiritual journey is something we do not focus enough on. Now, I'll be very open with people. I'm a long time, born again Christian, believer in Jesus Christ, have been I was raised in that culture, in that kind of family, and
Yep.
have been since I was 10 years old,
Hmm.
my salvation experience. But you know what? Life has brought a much deeper, broader understanding of our spirit self to me. Now, I've recently released a book called Fruitful and Free,
Hmm.
uh, Living the Abundant Life Through Spirit-Led Emotional Intelligence. And that was one way of broadening and deepening my understanding of the spiritual journey we're all on. But obviously, from my Bible study, from the work that I do as a grief counselor, I'd like to talk about that because what I've realized, and I don't think anybody else has built this construct. I think
Hmm.
it's something that I use, but if you think about a target, so like you're practicing your archery and you're looking at a target downrange. The
Hmm.
bullseye's in the center, and then there's the next ring out and the next ring out and the next ring out, right?
Hmm.
Well, in our lives, the bullseye is our spirit. It's dead center in the center of our lives. The next ring out is our emotions, our emotional life. The next ring out is our IQ, our knowledge, our experience, those kinds of things. And the next ring out is our behavior, decisions, actions, and all of that. Now, I'm not coming at this from any specific psychological model. I'm
Hmm.
just saying, in my experience, that's what I'm seeing in other people. So, if you want to solve a problem at a level or at one of those layers of rings, you have to go one layer deeper to solve the problem. So today, so many people that I talk to and work with, coach, consult with, whatever, so many of the issues that they have reside in the emotional ring.
Hmm.
Okay.
Hmm.
Well, the way to address those issues is to go one layer deeper. Well, there's only one layer deeper than that.
Right.
That's
The
the
spirit.
spirit, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So think of your spirit as that longing inside of you, that essence of who you are, where everything comes together and it has a longing and a desire to connect, to be in community, to have a level of self-worth and a level of realization of who you are and what is your place in the world, all of that. And so unless we look at that center of our lives, our spirit, as a vibrant, active part of who we are, if we're just neglecting that, then all we're doing is slapping band-aids on stuff,
Mm.
because our sometimes our actions, our decisions, our behaviors are not what we want them to be. We regret them. Well, where did that come from? It came from somewhere deeper. And so the more that we can understand how our spirit and how our spiritual journey impacts our entire lives, just like our emotional brain, the limbic
Hmm.
system impacts pretty much every decision we make, every
Yep.
action we take. Everything is integrated. That's the way I believe that way we're created. In my belief system, it's in the image of God, that
Hmm.
all of that is supposed to work together, not in opposition. And
Yeah.
that's where the alignment comes in.
Wow. So, I was going to maybe, and this would be the most probably rhetorical of questions, is like, why is it important? It's very clear you've made a good argument about why it's important. Would you say that, I mean, we hear it consistently, and at least for me, almost to the point of nausea about AI this, AI
Yeah.
that. Um, I think we might have touched on this the last time we were together, but it seems to me that the AI's disruption is going to make it even more important that that spiritual and emotional be developed and strengthened. Um, Agree, disagree? What are your thoughts on that?
Yes.
Easy answer.
Um, no, here's what I believe. AI is a tool.
Yep.
Okay. We don't know where it's headed. Is it going to become some monstrous thing that takes over the world, Skynet, and we're all gone, right?
Yeah.
But the reality is, the stronger you are in your spiritual life, in your spiritual development, in your spiritual walk,
Yep.
AI is just a tool. It's just like a computer, it's like a hammer and a nail. It's
Mhm.
just a tool
Yep.
because we treat it appropriately. And a big part of our healthy spiritual self
Hmm.
is setting priorities and where are we going to receive input from. Now, I've said this before, but I'm not sure if I've said it here.
Yep.
The input that we get in one day is the same amount of input that our grandparents got in 1 year. But
Mm.
our brains haven't evolved that much
No.
in 2 generations. So the reality is that we have to be better curators of what we allow into our lives. And that's where our spiritual self can help us because we can then create the boundaries that bring the balance that we want and need.
So you just kind of gave an advance on that one because I was going to ask you about what are some of the benefits of this spiritual journey. So that's obviously one. Are there any others that come to mind when you are focusing in or putting your effort into growing spiritually?
Yeah, absolutely. When I talk to, and this is the fun part of my work, when I talk to business owners and leaders and executives and these high level people, and I say, "What kind of joy do you have in your life?" They look at me like, "Joy? What's joy?"
Right.
I'm going, yeah, there's part of the problem. We have all kinds of words for comfort, for enjoyment, for fun, for happiness, for all of it. We have words for them, but we don't necessarily live them out.
Hmm.
And that's what I think in my book I wrote on living the abundant life. The abundant life doesn't mean, you've got $5 million in the bank and you're really happy. I have worked with extremely wealthy people, many of those lottery winners over the years. And I can tell you, those lottery winners, all of that money is gone in 18 months, most of the time. Okay.
Wow.
And then we're talking sometimes 150, $200 million. I talk to very wealthy families, very wealthy business owners, and money's not the answer. So back to the question, the spiritual part of our lives, when that is right, when we have that right, that is the source of true joy. It's the
Mm.
source of fulfillment and true satisfaction in our lives. And everybody out there is searching for that, but they're searching in the wrong places. It's not out there, it's in here.
Yeah, and that kind of connects to a theme of which I've been on for some time now about the importance of intrinsic versus extrinsic. I think
Yes.
it's so vitally important. Um, and I know there's, like any pursuit, any journey, you can go as deep as you choose to go. But I think at the end of the day, just at a base level, if I can live most of my life or the majority of my life intrinsically versus extrinsically, I'm
Right.
more than likely going to be able to say, well, yeah, I do have some joy here. I do have areas of my life where I can say, yeah, that gives me joy.
Mhm.
I sometimes think, Steve, we've this system that we're in, call it the world system or whatever, uh, it's kind of duped us into believing
Yeah.
that if I have 200 million, then that will make everything else solid, wonderful, and great. And I think what happens is that, it kind of goes to that old saying, be careful what you wish for, you might just get it.
Yes.
And you come to that place and you realize it can't do it. I kind of
Yeah.
We had a good moment in a recording yesterday with a guest, and we were talking about money. And I said, if money had a personality and a voice and all of that, it probably would say, I'm not meant to do that for you. You need to find that somewhere else. That's not why I'm here. But you've been trying to make me that, and you're disappointed. And what else did you expect, right? And it was just fascinating, even just to talk and verbalize that, because it's kind of like, yeah, I mean, it's really not money's fault.
No, it's the love of money that
Mm,
is the problem because it's like any other addiction. The more you have, the more you want, and it's never enough.
yeah,
I mean, you talk to, the most wealthy people in the world, and you ask them, how much more do you need? I think that question was posed to Rockefeller. He said, at
yes,
least one more dollar,
mm,
right? And
yeah,
and that's chasing and that's the sad part about chasing the external, chasing. Now I know we got to pay our bills. I get that. Okay. Take care of
totally.
our families, pay our bills, do those kinds of things. I get that. But the reality is that that is not where joy or happiness or fulfillment or satisfaction or any of those things that stick with us long term, that's not where it comes from. The way that I look at this, we all have things we believe to be true about ourselves and our place in the world. Okay, now that right there, the innermost beliefs we have about who we are and our place in the world is a part of our faith journey. Okay, a
Hmm.
part of our spiritual journey.
Mhm.
From that very important point, we create rules that we live by. Those two things then generate our self-talk, which then generates emotions. So start listening to your self-talk. If it's negative, if it's critical of yourself, I'm not talking about fake it till you make it. I'm not talking about false positivity. What I'm
Mhm.
saying is when you're honestly talking to yourself, what are you saying? And if you hear things like, I'm not good enough, this isn't right, I'm not happy, why do I always have to go through? Is it always going to be this way? When you hear yourself saying those things, dig back into your beliefs at the very center of who you are and the rules that you've created to live your life by around those beliefs. Because guess what? Who owns those beliefs? You do. Who has made up those rules? You have. You
Mhm.
can change that if you want to. But that is such an important part of it's like what we feed our spirit is what we will get back in return.
Yeah.
So are
Yeah.
we feeding our spirit the things that will help us to grow?
Yeah. It's interesting, Steve, as you touch on that, because we have an episode coming up with that a psychologist who we talked a lot about core beliefs and about that, how that creates a story or rules, as you alluded to. And I think you what you touched on is really important too, because in an age of instantaneous, right? There's
Right.
always this desire to get an answer quick, to get it figured out fast, and let's not wait. But what I have found, and my gut says you're going to say something similar, if not the same, it requires work to rewire your brain and how you think about things.
Right.
Um, I'll give you an example from my own experience. I I got out of the business of trying to tell people how to live their life. Probably when I had kids. So, when I realized you have no business trying to tell anyone about how to live their life.
Oh,
And I grew up in a faith, uh call it a denomination or whatever, where you know it was kind of like, well, yeah, that's what you should do, that's why God put you here, right? And you need to let them know, don't do this, don't do that, and if you're doing this, and I'm going toward this idea about rewiring your brain, about how you think about things, right? So over time, and it was difficult, because it began with the understanding, like I was embarrassed. I had that moment where I'm going like, who do you think you are?
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
you're going to tell another human being that you have the way for them to have X, Y, and Z. No, you
Hmm.
don't. And that was a time of where I could legitimately say, I've got so many things that are out of whack in my life. So the awakening. Now, what happens is that process of working on it, right?
Right.
And at that time, Steve, if you would have said to me, well, this particular group, they are the worst, they are the this, they don't, and we stay away from them, they need to get their act, whatever. I would have probably been that person to go, okay, yeah, I agree. But now I see them through a different lens through this process.
Yeah.
It's like, hold on, maybe we should be supportive, maybe not of a destructive behavior, but let's be supportive of they're on their journey. They're trying to figure it out. And who knows, maybe I can be someone that could help them to figure out,
Mm.
right? Because in the end, I mean, the total end, I'm not going to be involved in whether or not Steve lived a good life or I lived. I mean, as far as other people, I'm not going to be there for that. But
Right.
along the way, who am I to, again, to say, no, I'm sorry, until you get your act together, I have nothing for you. And it was hard because I had those old neural pathways that were typically is what I would revert to. Call it back a belief that had rules attached.
Yeah.
If I believe that you are not worthy of my attention, support, empathy, well, the rule is come and see me when you are a better person in my eyes.
Which I'm really glad Jesus Christ didn't treat me that way because I would never be worthy. And I love the fact, and it's so important. What you're saying here is so important. Whatever your belief system is, okay,
Right,
whatever
right.
your faith is, whoever's listening to this, you're not going to be able to push your agenda down somebody else's throat and expect that to be the transformation for them.
Yeah,
What you can do, though, is pull the best out of them by supporting them, by helping them, by being there, by listening well,
yeah,
by providing whatever it is that they need. But that's the reality of the spiritual journey is we all have our beliefs about what it should be and what it should be anchored in. But
yeah.
the reality is the journey is there for all of us.
Yep.
Everybody's on a spiritual journey. Some people are stumbling a lot on that journey. Some people feel like they're running a good race. And I think our job is to help people understand what does the journey look like? What do you experience in this journey? And then let them run their own race and figure
Yeah,
out where they're headed.
yeah.
Obviously, I would love them to believe like I do, right? Because I
Sure.
think that's the right way. But I am not the arbiter or the judge of other people's beliefs and behaviors.
Yeah, because I think about it, Steve. I wish everyone would have bought GE when I bought GE stock,
Right,
because I think it's awesome. It was great. It's been a great return, and of course I'm going to tell you how great it is because look what it did for me. But
right.
you might say, I stay away from those industrials. I'm all tech. That's all that I'm looking for. I might say, boy, that didn't ring true for me. But again, to your point, it's not up to me. I
That's
want to
right.
pivot for a moment to this idea of working on yourself. Okay.
Okay.
And kind of connecting to this idea of rewiring our brains, et cetera, et cetera. So it seems to me that and at least as I can speak to in the United States or the US culture, right? If somebody inside of a corporation or a business said, okay, I need everybody to commit extra time and effort in this new project we've got that's got to be completed in 6 months. Most people would not hesitate. They would be, okay, everybody, let's go. But if you said, hey, I want you to start working on yourself, self growth, improvement, it seems like it would be that, well, I don't know if I have time. I'm really busy. And I've always found that interesting that we've elevated certain things that in the end probably are not going to give a tremendous return on the investment. And the thing that could provide a really powerful return on investment, we kind of ignore. So give me some
Yeah.
thoughts on what you think as it relates to the idea of working on yourself.
Wow. I've got a lot of thoughts on that. I'm actually in the process of writing another book called Patterns and Pathways that is all
Mm,
about habits. And here's what I've learned as far as working on yourself, somebody asked me at the first of this year, I was in with a group of leaders, and somebody asked the question, what's the best thing we can do for ourselves and for our people to prepare for what comes next because we don't know what's coming next, right?
mm,
We don't know what's coming down the road, what's going to happen in the future. And what I told them, and I believe this very, very deeply, that the best way to prepare for what comes next is to create a mindset that is a growth mindset. It's an agile, adaptive mindset. It's a mindset of a balance in four primary areas: habit transformation, emotional intelligence, rational thinking skills, and specific skill development. I won't go into all the science and the research I've done on this, but what I will say is when you put those four pillars together, you get increased character, increased competence, increased capacity, increased confidence. And so that mindset will only happen when you believe and commit to transformation from the inside out, right?
Mm.
That's the problem in organizations today and with individuals today when you hear the word change. Change is temporary, transformation is permanent. It's
Wow.
caterpillar to butterfly. Okay. So
Yeah.
if if somebody comes to you, if a leader comes to you and says, we're going to have to change, we're going to have to do this, then here's what everybody's thinking. Oh, great. Here's the next flavor of the month, right? And next
Hmm.
month it's going to be something different. Now, not everybody's that way. I've got a really good friend, Larry Solomon, who wrote a book on this. He changed the direction of Dr. Pepper Snapple many years ago when they were in a very precarious place. And he turned them with his work in change, he turned them into one of the most successful, profitable businesses in a business that has very narrow margins because it
Hmm.
was more about people. The reason I bring that up is just to anchor this thought of stop thinking change, think transformation. And it's just like your spiritual journey. It will not end until the end of your life. So this transformational process is ongoing and it allows us to grow. And and I tell everybody that I help them with hiring, when they're looking to hire, talent.
Hmm.
I said the first thing we're going to look for is a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. And if they have a fixed mindset, then we don't want those folks because they know everything and they only have one way of doing things and it's never going to change. Uh,
Yeah.
and you know what the problem is? And I just wrote a blog article and did an episode on my podcast about this, about self-limiting.
Mm.
So many of the roadblocks, the vast majority of people's roadblocks in every part of their life, especially the spiritual aspect of their life, so many of the roadblocks are self-imposed.
Oh my gosh. And Steve, it's not necessarily very spiritual, but one of the things that I have been on the search for and continue to be on the search for is on the podcast. I want to do an episode, maybe more, on women's health, specifically in that premenopausal, menopausal, and postmenopausal range, as it relates to hormone replacement therapy. There's a tremendous amount of uh, it's misunderstood, if that's the right way to say it, if not mischaracterized. And there are a lot of women in that range who are in really bad shape that don't have to be. And I'm not here,
Right.
I'm not looking for someone to sell a special thing, pill or whatever. But I've been on a search for finding a physician who is open, if not pro HRT. Specifically, I'd like it to be a woman, right? A
Mhm.
woman physician. And my wife, who is one of my great coaches and allies, brings up this person who, Steve, is what we would say in the podcast realm, and they're kind of like a rock star, right?
Yeah, okay.
I mean, they're interviewed by names that are much bigger than mine. And you know what came out of my mouth as soon as she uttered their name? Oh, that's not going to, she wouldn't want to be on our show. And I stop myself and I go,
Yeah.
how do you know that? Where's
Yeah.
your data?
Yeah.
No, that was me saying limit. I'm not, I'm imposing a limit on what I can. Now, the good news, the happy ending, if you will, I am going to reach out to them. And yes, I get it. They might say, sorry, can't fit that in, or sorry, you don't have enough of
Right.
X. And that's okay. But what's important is we got to catch those things, right? And begin to go, hold on, where does that come from? And in my case, with that situation, it's self-limiting, just like you said.
Yeah. And let's tie that back to the spiritual for just a second.
Hmm.
Um, I believe in a big, big God. Okay. And so I have rewired my brain to pull out a lot of those self-limiting behaviors.
Yep.
So when I think I can't do that, I'm no good at that, they're not going to like me or whatever it happens to be, I now have a filter in place that says, wait a minute, what if that's part of God's will? What
Hmm.
if that's part of my spiritual journey? And so instead of and I'm not, again, this is not a fake it till you make it or that kind of an approach. This is very simply a why would I limit what a higher power could do
Yep.
in my life, right? It
Yep.
doesn't make any sense to do that. Now,
Yeah.
many people do that because it's outside their comfort zone. It's a problem, it's an issue, whatever. But my very good friend, Dr. Chuck Coker, has a wonderful saying. I've done a lot of work with him, created a emotional intelligence for leadership online course with him. And I love his saying, growth happens at the edge of our comfort zone.
Mm.
That's what we have to do. We've got to rewire this to say
Yep.
it's not about comfort. And that's where we go back to everything we've talked about today. The money is not going to give you comfort. Believe me, I have worked with very high net worth individuals, and their families are a mess most
Yeah.
of the time. And they have the same fears and the same anxieties and stresses. Maybe the source is different,
Yep.
but they have the same stuff we all have.
Yeah.
And, if I've had that ability to see into that and say, whoa, I'm in a pretty good place. My spiritual walk is in a good place. I'm connected well and aligned well in a lot of areas. Hey, my bank account may not be all that big, but man, I'm pretty happy in life. And I
Yeah.
love what I do in my work. And I'm transforming lives by equipping people. So I don't know what else you ask for.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's kind of go at it also too from the practical. If someone in our audience is saying, "Okay, I hear you guys talking about rewiring the brain and thinking differently, transform versus change." Are there some practical things that someone could do? I mean, just starting out, let's assume that, hey, they want to give it a shot. What
Yeah.
would you say to them?
Well, you know me very well. Everything I do starts with validated assessments, validated
Mm-hmm.
scientific assessments. So, for instance, let's say that you've got some counterproductive habits going on. Well, in the first place, we can't change what we can't see. Okay,
Mm.
so I now have an assessment. It just came out a couple of years ago. It's been in the works for 30 years. It's called the Habit Story Assessment. It
Mm-hmm.
measures productive and counterproductive habits on the same scale. How is this practical to someone? If you're sabotaging yourself, if you're denying yourself, if you're dismissing things in your life, if you're
Mm-hmm.
blame shifting, I'm naming a lot of different counterproductive habits.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Neglect, you name it. There's all kinds of counterproductive habits. Well, if you're not aware of those automatically diminish your productive habits.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the thing that was such an eye opener for me. 40 to 90% of our daily actions and decisions are done by habit with no thought put into it.
Yeah, I
So,
believe
hey,
that.
maybe you're on the 40% side, but maybe you're on the 80% side. Well, the
Mm-hmm.
problem with that is what happens if a lot of those are counterproductive habits? So the first thing
Yeah.
people can do, get good data
Data.
to
Yeah.
make good insights and good information to make your best decisions.
Hmm.
There is nothing more important than how you choose to invest in your own development. I truly believe that because that is the vehicle that's going to drive your success and your satisfaction in life. So we do that about everything we buy. We do that about a car if we're going to buy it. We do it
Yeah.
about a washing machine or whatever it is. We get the best data we can before we make our decision. Why in the world would you not do it for yourself?
Yeah. It's really, really powerful. And I almost liken it also to is the willingness, and this would it's going to require some investment of money, but
Sure.
the willingness to employ a good roster of support professionals, and I'm going to call them that just for the lack of a better term, but fill in the blank. It's a coach, it's it's a therapist, it's a pastor, it's a priest, it's all of
Yeah.
these people that I almost liken it to. Okay, Steve, we're going to get on a call at 9 a.m. on Mondays for a month. And I'm going to check in. Steve, okay, here's what I've been working on. What do you think about this?
Right.
Steve giving me input, Steve asking me those powerful open-ended questions so that I can come away with it going, okay, I checked on myself and it is that's why I kind of come back to it again. I know we talked about it a little bit in the beginning. It's almost like the world system is trying to dupe us into believing that we can leave ourselves like on the sidelines, that all the
Or,
exterior, you know?
or that there's a quick fix.
Right. Yeah. In especially there. Yes. Yeah. The
Right.
idea, right, that I can get an answer. I use that example. I mentioned to you that we've got a episode coming up with a psychologist, and we were talking about core beliefs. But I said to her, I said, give me your thoughts around AI, and we kind of started talking a bit about that. And I said, well, it's interesting. I saw, and it was on social media, so take it for what it might be worth or not.
It's got to be true.
All right. Well, this person, Steve, was basically lauding, and I think the chatbot was ChatGPT. Um, Basically, the premise of the post was you don't need to be paying a therapist $150 for an hour. All you need to do is input this, and this into ChatGPT, and you get this. And my gosh, I saved 100 and whatever dollars.
Right.
And she said something to me or said in the recording about there's no way that AI can interact within the human to human perspective, the nuance.
Right.
And
Right.
that
And
nuance, man, that's the
we
part.
we are created to be in community.
Yep.
Okay. That's
Yeah.
human to human interaction.
And
And
Steve, I'm interrupting you, but what you just said there, what was some of the ramifications, the consequences of the COVID?
yeah.
When we lost that, what damage did that do? And that's not me saying, hey, we should have handled the COVID, the lockdowns different. That's not my point. But there's no denying what that isolation and the separations of from human to human did to us.
Right. No, I think that's really important. Most of our focus should be on the windshield in front of us, not on the rear view mirror. But if we don't check the rear view mirror from time to time and
Yeah.
look at history and what happened, then we're going to have accidents. We're going to run into the same things.
Yep.
So we have to learn. And this is so important because this ties with everything we're talking about today. Self-awareness, self-reflection is the foundation for us to grow spiritually, to have a good, healthy spiritual, emotional, mental development of ourselves. And we have to include the experiences we've had in that process
Yeah.
because without that, we don't have the foundation to make the best decisions going forward. And
That's
that's what
crucial.
this life is all about
Yeah.
is this is why you'll hear phrases like, wow, these people, when they reach their 70s and 80s, they've gained a lot of wisdom. Well, you know what wisdom is? It's life experience and pain and challenge, and it's all of those things that people have been through that have taught lessons that hopefully you retain. Now,
Yeah.
not everybody retains those lessons, but
We know
you
that
know,
to be true. We know
and
that to
we're
be true.
still the jury's out on our kids. We're still not sure
Yeah,
about them, but
yep. The work in
um,
progress. The work in
yeah,
progress. Steve, so as we're getting close to closing out today's episode, I did want to get a sense from you. I mean, you're a very optimistic guy. You've been that person in my life for, my gosh, I think we've known each other for close to 7 years now.
yeah.
Um, what are you working on right now that's got you excited? Okay. Really has got you lasered in, that you'd want to maybe let our audience know about?
Yeah, absolutely. From a provider perspective, what I'm offering to people, what I've realized is in today's world, busy schedules, lots going on, but people still have that desire to learn, to grow, and all of that. I've taken my 12 months of transformation process, I've condensed it into 12 weeks, and I'm calling it a mastermind. And I've
Hmm.
got three different ones: leadership, sales, and ministry. So I've got three different areas of focus. But what I've realized is for a set amount of time and a set investment of the individual, their time and their energy into that, I know, having worked with hundreds of organizations over the years, we can change. No, wrong word. We can transform
Hmm.
in 12 weeks. And it's based on those four things I talked about earlier:
Right.
habit transformation, emotional intelligence, rational thinking skills, and then specific skill development. But what I've added in is technology. How do we infuse technology
Oh
to
my gosh.
support all of these other things, not take away from this personal development?
Am I being too assumptive that you'll have something in there around AI?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. AI, CRM systems, I mean, you name it, we're going to talk about it. Communication systems for leaders,
Hmm.
and emails and all of these different things. Technology is not going to slow down. So
Yeah.
what we have to do is we have to raise our technology skills along with our human skills. And part of our
Hmm.
human skills is self-development. Then, we can develop and lead other people. So those masterminds, as a matter of fact, here's the way they're going to work. I'm going to have one of each every 12 weeks.
Okay.
And the enrollment's open right now. I'm only taking 8 to 10 people total for each one of those. And once I have that, it's closed. Right now, the next ones won't open until 2026
Yeah.
because, we're not that far off. The
Oh my
second
gosh. Yes.
thing that I'm very excited about, which
Hey,
is,
Steve, I'm going to interrupt you. I got to
yeah,
ask, from a practical, logistical standpoint, does the person, if they wanted to be involved in one of these masterminds, do they need to be local to where you're at, or can they
no,
be?
absolutely not.
Okay,
They can
so
be
it's
anywhere in the
virtual.
world.
Okay.
It's
All right. Perfect.
virtual. And I know people, when you look at masterminds and all that, our new web pages will be up and running on eqfit.org within
Okay.
the next 2 weeks. So you can check them out. You can see, I guarantee you the investment of money into it is going to be a surprise, a very pleasant surprise to people, because I'm not trying to get rich off this. What I want to do is I want to get people together who want to grow, and I want to be part of their growth journey, whether they're in
Yeah.
leadership, sales, or whether they're in
Well,
ministry.
and I think about it, Steve, if you help a leader, and I'm just going to use one example, one leader transforms, what impact does that have about their spouse, their kids, their
Yeah,
parents, their neighbors? I mean, you can see the potential for ripple here. And I mean,
yeah,
I know you know this, but for me, that's the thing that gives me a lot of joy, is that there could be
right.
a son or a daughter who's going to have a father or a mother who's now more self aware, now not so
Yeah,
quick to And all of a sudden they go, the person that's the most influential person in my life is getting better.
Right. And they're getting better at a stage in the life that you may not have expected it.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
they're in those 40s, 50s, and 60s, but
Yeah.
they're still improving,
Yeah.
right?
That's
Neuro,
inspiring. That's
yeah,
really inspiring. All right.
yeah.
So I cut you off there. So you were saying the
No,
second thing.
another thing that's a free resource is I've started three new playlists in my YouTube channel. So it's YouTube at EQFit
Okay.
and Emotionally Intelligent Living, Straight Talk with Steve. These are all
Hmm.
Straight Talk with Steve.
Okay.
Emotionally Intelligent Living, which is kind of a general thing.
Hmm.
Um, and then there's leadership insights and sales insights. All of it, of course, with emotional intelligence and all the different things, habit transformation, all these things I've been talking about. But
Right.
what I'm doing on those is I'm just going live on YouTube. The recordings are there for later.
Hmm.
I'm keeping right at 15 minutes. That's about as much time. I mean, if you're driving to work or going to lunch or something like that, it's a nice listen or a view. Please don't watch while you're driving.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
That's
Forewarned.
the disclaimer.
Yep. Don't
Uh,
drive and watch Steve's videos.
yeah, please don't do that. As intriguing and engaging as I am, right? Um, the other thing that I'm excited about is I have the two books out right now, Unlocking Sales Success with EQ, and then
Yep.
Fruitful and Free, which is more the faith and spiritual side. The next one will be out in the next month or so. I'm not exactly sure the release date, but
Hmm.
basically it's called The Emotionally Intelligent Leader, How to Lead with Power, Balance, and Purpose. And it'll have a lot of these things embedded into it that we've talked about today. And then I'll
Beautiful.
get that other book out sometime this year, probably later this year, which is all about patterns and pathways. Patterns meaning the patterns that we create in our lives, pathways being neural pathways that lead to the
Hmm.
habits that we reinforce.
Yeah.
Because habit transformation is probably something that is going to be very critical for a success factor moving forward. Because
Hmm.
you call it rewiring your brain. It's exactly what it is.
Yeah. Wow. Steve, I so appreciate you coming back on, and we'll certainly have you back as always. And for our audience, Steve's information will be in the show notes, so you'll be able to access him that way. And I highly recommend you connect with him. I think you will benefit greatly. So, with
And
that,
I'll say this, a conversation doesn't cost you anything. So,
absolutely.
I'm open to have a conversation with anybody who's interested.
Yeah, that's great. Steve, appreciate you.
Same here, Eric. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And for our audience, once again, thanks for tuning in, and we look forward to the next time that we are together. Take care.